I've made billions of dollars. I've also lost millions of dollars. And I can tell you with absolute certainty that the most dangerous investor in the world isn't someone with no money. It's someone with a little money and a lot of confidence. That's exactly where you are right now. And that's exactly why I need you to watch this. You've got some money. Maybe it's $500. Maybe it's $5,000. Maybe you just got your first real paycheck and you're sitting there thinking, okay, I've seen enough TikToks about passive income. I've watched enough YouTube videos about the stock market. It's time for me to get in on this. And I get it. I really do. Because I was that guy too. Before the Mavericks, before broadcast.com, before Shark Tank. I was a 2-3-year-old kid in Dallas who thought he understood the market better than everyone else in the room. I didn't. And I paid for that lesson the hard way. So here's what this video is. It's everything I wish someone had sat me down and told me before I made my first investment. Not the polished hedge fund version of this conversation, the real version. The one where I tell you about the psychological traps that will cost you more than any bad stock pick ever could. The one where I tell you exactly where to start, what to avoid, and why the boring strategy is almost always the right strategy. This isn't theory. This is 40 years of watching people get rich and watching people blow everything and understanding the difference between the two. Here's the thing that separates people who actually build wealth from people who spend their whole lives talking about building wealth. It's not intelligence. It's not timing. It's not even luck. Although luck plays a role, it's behavior. It's what you do when the market drops 20% and your stomach drops with it. It's what you do when your brother-in-law tells you about a cryptocurrency that's about to explode. It's what you do when you're bored on a Sunday afternoon and you start moving money around because sitting still feels wrong. Those moments, not the moments when everything is going up, those are the moments that define your financial life. Before we even talk about where to put your money, I want to talk about something more important, your relationship with money and how your brain is actively working against you right now. I'm not being insulting. I'm being honest. The human brain was not built for investing. It was built for survival, and survival instincts in the modern financial market are a disaster. Here's what I mean. When you see a stock going up, your brain releases dopamine, the same chemical that makes you feel good when you eat something delicious or hear a great song. That dopamine hit makes you want to buy. But here's the problem. By the time something is going up enough to feel exciting, you're probably already late. You're buying what someone smarter than you is already selling. On the flip side, when a stock drops, your brain goes into panic mode. It reads that red number the same way it reads a threat, and it screams at you to get out, sell, cut your losses, run. That instinct, that completely natural human instinct, causes the average investor to buy high and sell low, which is, if you think about it, the exact opposite of what you're supposed to do. This isn't a theory. I've watched it happen on Shark Tank hundreds of times. Someone comes in with a great business, a real business, and the moment I push back even slightly, they start questioning everything they built. The doubt creeps in, and that same thing happens with your investments every single day. The market pushes back, you start doubting, you sell, and then the market goes right back up and you're standing on the outside watching. So before you invest a single dollar, I want you to make a decision, a real decision, not a theoretical one. I want you to decide that for the next 5 years, you are not going to panic. You are going to watch the market drop, maybe drop significantly, and you are going to do nothing. Can you make that commitment? Because if you can't, I promise you that investing right now will cost you money, not make you money. And that's not me trying to scare you. That's just math. Now let's talk about the foundation, because so many people skip this and it drives me absolutely crazy. Before you put money into the stock market, you need to understand your full financial picture, and I mean all of it. Do you have high interest debt right now? Credit cards, personal loans charging you 20, 22, 25% interest? Because if you do, investing in the stock market is, and I'm going to say this plainly, kind of stupid. The market has historically returned somewhere around 10% a year over long periods of time. That's a great return, but it doesn't matter if you're simultaneously paying 25% interest on $3,000 in credit card debt. You're filling a bucket with a giant hole in the bottom. Pay off that high-interest debt first. That is your guaranteed 22% return. The stock market doesn't offer you guaranteed anything. Paying off debt at 22% interest is one of the best investments you will ever make. And barely anyone talks about it because credit card companies definitely don't want you to hear it. Next question, do you have an emergency fund? And I'm not talking about a huge pile of cash sitting in a mattress. I'm talking about 3 to 6 months of your basic expenses sitting in a savings account, earning some interest, ready to be used if your car breaks down or you lose your job or a medical bill shows up that you weren't expecting. I know people who invested their entire savings in 2020, right before the market crashed in March. They had no emergency fund. When they lost their jobs and the market was down 30%, they had to sell everything at exactly the wrong time. They didn't just lose money on paper. They locked in real losses because they had no other choice. Don't let that be you. The emergency fund isn't a boring idea. It's the thing that lets you hold your investments through the hard moments instead of being forced to bail when it hurts the most. Okay, if you have high interest debt paid off or at least under control and you have some kind of financial cushion in place, now we can talk about actually investing. And here's where I'm probably going to say something that surprises you. Coming from someone who made his money picking individual companies, for most people, most regular people who have jobs and lives and aren't obsessively studying financial statements every day, you should not be picking individual stocks. I know that's not the exciting answer. I know you wanted me to give you 3 ticker symbols and tell you to buy them all. But I'd be lying to you if I did that, and lying to people is something I genuinely don't do. Here's the reality. I have spent decades in the business world. I understand balance sheets, income statements, competitive advantages, market positioning. I have relationships and information networks that most people don't have access to. And even with all of that, picking stocks consistently is brutally hard. There are rooms full of people with PhDs in mathematics and finance, and they have access to more data than you and I combined. And the majority of them still fail to beat the market over a 15-year period. That's not an insult to them. That's just how efficient modern markets are. If there was an obvious opportunity sitting in a stock price, 1,000 algorithms would have already found it and traded it away before you finished reading the headline. So what does a regular person with real money in a real life actually do? You buy the whole market, not one company, not 5 companies, the whole thing through something called an index fund. An index fund is exactly what it sounds like. Instead of betting on one company or even a handful of companies, you're buying a tiny piece of every major company at once. When you buy a broad market index fund or an S&P 500 index fund, you own a small slice of Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Berkshire Hathaway, and hundreds of other companies all in one investment. When the market goes up, you go up. When the market goes down, you go down. But here's the beautiful part. Over the history of the United States market, it has always gone back up. Every crash, every recession, every panic, the market has eventually recovered and gone on to new highs. That doesn't mean it will happen instantly. Sometimes it takes years. But if you're investing with money you don't need for a long time, history is on your side. And here's the other thing about index funds that people don't talk about enough. The fees. When you buy an actively managed fund, meaning a fund where some professional is sitting there deciding what to buy and sell, those managers charge fees, sometimes around 1% per year, sometimes more. That sounds small, but over 20 or 30 years, compounding that fee difference against your returns adds up to a massive amount of money. Low-cost index funds, some of the most popular ones, charge as little as $3 to $5 per year for every $10,000 you have invested. The difference over a lifetime of investing can be hundreds of thousands of dollars, not because the returns are dramatically different year to year, because its fees compound against you the same way returns compound for you. Let me break this down in a way that I think really lands. Let's say you invest $10,000 today and you leave it alone for 30 years at a 7% average annual return. Because we need to account for inflation, When we're talking about real wealth building, that $10,000 becomes roughly $76,000. That's a real return, not adjusted for fees. Now, let's say you're in a fund that charges 1% in fees annually. Your actual net return drops to around 6%. Same $10,000 over the same 30 years becomes about $57,000. That 1% fee cost you almost $20,000 off of a $10,000 investment. That's not a small difference. That's enough to change things for people, and most people never think about it because the fee isn't a bill you get in the mail. It just quietly comes out of your returns every single year. So here's what the actual process looks like, not theoretically, practically. You open a brokerage account. Most countries have multiple options. In the United States, platforms like Fidelity, Schwab, or Vanguard are where I'd point most beginners. You want something with no account minimums, no trading fees, and access to low-cost index funds. Most of these platforms take about 15 minutes to set up, and you can do it from your phone right now. Once your account is open, you choose one fund to start. Just one. Don't overthink this. A total stock market index fund or an S&P 500 index fund is where most people should begin. If you're investing inside a retirement account, a target date fund is another solid choice because it automatically gets more conservative as you get older. So you don't have to think about adjusting your mix over time. Pick one and move on. The analysis paralysis that comes from trying to pick the perfect fund has cost more people more money than almost any bad investment decision. You put the money in, and then you do the single most important thing you can do as a new investor. You set up automatic contributions. Whatever you can afford, maybe it's $50 a month, maybe it's $200 a month. Whatever the number is, you automate it and you set it up so that on the same day every month, money moves from your checking account into your investment account without you doing anything. Because the truth is, motivation is unreliable. You'll feel motivated to invest when the market is going up and everything feels great. You'll feel terrified to invest when the market is dropping and the news is screaming about recession. But those months when everything looks terrible and your gut is telling you to skip the contribution, those are often the best months to be buying. Automation removes your emotions from the equation entirely. And removing your emotions from investing is one of the best things you can ever do for your financial future. Now I want to talk about the thing that's going to test you, because it will happen at some point, probably more than once. The market is going to drop significantly, maybe 10%, maybe 20%, maybe more. And when it does, you are going to feel something in your body. Your chest will tighten. You'll check the account more than you should. You'll see the red numbers and your brain will start doing the math on how much you've lost. And voices, both inside your head and outside it, will tell you to get out before it gets worse. I want you to remember this moment right now when that happens, because here's the truth about market crashes. They are the price of admission. Every long-term investor who has ever made serious money has sat through moments exactly like the one you'll be facing. The crash of 2000, the financial crisis of 2008, the COVID crash of 2020. In every single one of those moments, the people who sold locked in their losses forever. The people who held, and especially the people who kept buying, eventually came out way ahead, not because they had some special information, because they understood that temporary pain is part of the process. I'll give you a real example. If you had invested $10,000 in a broad U.S. market index fund in January of 2008, right before one of the worst financial crises in modern history, and you just held it and didn't touch it, by 2018, you would have roughly doubled your money, despite having lived through a near total collapse. And if you had kept it all the way through 2020's 20s and beyond, the returns get even more significant. That's the power of not doing anything, which is a sense you will almost never hear from anyone trying to sell you something on the internet. Here's the thing about the investing world that I think gets glossed over constantly. Most of the content you see about investing is created by people who benefit from your activity. The more you trade, the more someone makes money. The more you switch funds, the more fees get generated somewhere. The more excitement and urgency the content creates, the more views and clicks and engagement it gets. None of that aligns with your interests. Your interests are served by doing less, not more. By being boring, by automating and walking away and living your life and not checking your account every morning before you've had your coffee. The biggest wealth killer for retail investors isn't picking a bad stock. It's the habit of constantly checking, constantly reacting, constantly adjusting. I've seen people with genuinely good long-term investments destroy their own returns because they couldn't leave things alone. They watch a fund drop 8% and switch to something that had just gone up 12%. Then that new fund would drop and they'd switch again. Every switch has a cost. Every tax event from selling eats into your returns. Every moment of emotional decision-making costs you something. The people who build real wealth over decades are almost always the people who found a simple strategy, automated it, and then developed the discipline to not touch it. I want to spend a minute on something that comes up constantly, and I want to be completely direct about it. Cryptocurrency, individual stocks, options trading, anything with high risk and high reward promises. I am not saying these things have no place in anyone's portfolio. I personally have made investments in crypto and in individual companies, but here is the absolute critical difference between what I do and what most people watching this video would do. I don't put money I can't afford to lose into those bets, not ever. If I put money into a speculative investment, it's money I have already mentally written off. It's already gone in my mind before I make the investment, because that's what speculative investing actually is. It's a bet. And bets can go to zero. Your foundation, the index funds, the automated contributions, the diversified, boring, long-term strategy, that needs to be in place and growing before you even think about any of that. If you want to put 5% of your portfolio into something exciting after your foundation is built, fine. Go ahead. Learn from it. Win or lose, you'll learn something valuable, but it should be 5%, and it should come after the foundation exists, not instead of it. Let's talk about taxes, because this is another area where people leave enormous amounts of money on the table without realizing it. In most countries, there are investment accounts designed specifically to give you tax advantages. In the United States, that means things like a 401 kilobits or a Roth IRA. In other countries, similar structures exist under different names. The basic idea is that investing through these accounts allows your money to grow either tax-free or tax-deferred, meaning you keep more of your returns instead of handing a portion to the government every year. If your employer offers any kind of retirement match, meaning they'll add money to your account when you contribute, that is a guaranteed 50% or 100% return on those dollars before your investment even begins to grow. There is no investment on earth that can compete with that. Use it, maximize it, then consider a Roth IRA or its equivalent. Then, and only then, invest in a regular taxable brokerage account. The order matters because the tax advantages compound over time, just like everything else does. Now I want to close with something that doesn't get said enough. The goal of investing isn't just the number in your account. I mean, yes, obviously growing your wealth matters, but the real goal is options. The more invested wealth you build, the more choices you have about how to live your life. Maybe it means retiring earlier than you expected. Maybe it means leaving a job you hate because you have a cushion that lets you take a risk on something you love. Maybe it means never having to panic about a medical bill or a job loss. Maybe it means being able to help people in your family when they need it. Money that is sitting in a savings account earning almost nothing is not giving you options. It's just sitting there, slowly losing value to inflation. Money that's working in the market, even in the most boring index fund imaginable, is building your future options, 1 month at a time. The people who I respect most financially aren't the ones who made the biggest bets. They're the ones who had the discipline to build consistently over a long period of time. They're the ones who didn't get seduced by the get-rich-quick story. They're the ones who woke up in their 50s and realized that 30 years of boring, automated, low-fee investing had built them something real and lasting, and that can be you. It won't be exciting. It won't make a good TikTok. There won't be a dramatic story about the one trade that changed everything, but it will work. It will actually work. And at the end of the day, actually working is the only thing that matters. So here's what I want you to do after you finish watching this. Just one thing. Open an account today. Not tomorrow, not next week, today. Take 15 minutes and get set up with a brokerage account. Put whatever you have available in, even if it's small, into a broad index fund. Set up automatic contributions for whatever amount you can do consistently. And then put your phone down and go live your life. The market will go up, the market will go down. News will make you feel like the whole system is about to fall apart. None of that changes the plan. The plan doesn't need adjusting every time there's a scary headline. The plan just needs time, and time is the one thing you could start giving it right now